Okay, so thinking back to the lessons that we've done and the video on narrative structure and the narrative arc, we're going to start thinking about planning a piece of writing. So I want you to remember a 5-point plan. It's a quick and useful way of making decisions about what the story is going to be about, who, where, the mood and tone, and how it's going to rise and fall to the end. So, 5-point plan. Number 1, exposition. Who is there? Where are they? Why? And what time is it? When is it? Then you're going to think about a conflict that this person has, a problem generating a conflict that will cause some rising action. So, for example, is it an inner conflict? Will the person have a problem that they're dealing with or something they're trying to come to terms with? And that's an internal conflict. Or is it going to be an external conflict, something outside of the character's immediate control that they have to grapple with? What you're doing is trying to keep it really simple. You're not building towards a conflict that's going to build towards a climax that involves the character battling aliens to save the world. We don't have time in a short piece of narrative writing. The easiest thing to do is to have the character dealing with an inner conflict, but you need to decide. So stage 1, decide who, where, when, and the atmosphere, set the tone. Stage 2, decide on a conflict. Stage 3, think about the climax, what will happen. And I like to keep it really simple. They have a decision to make, and that decision will there'll be 2 options, and whichever option they choose, that will immediately impact on the outcome. If they choose the right decision, they'll have a positive outcome. If they choose the wrong decision, a negative outcome. Something like that. Just keep it very clear and simple. And then we get to the falling action. So at the end of the climax, part 4, we're going to have the falling action. And that's basically the immediate aftermath of whatever decision they've made. So we now see the character coming to terms with either a positive outcome, or we see them with a slightly more negative outcome, depending on the choice they made at the climax. And finally, we have the resolution. How is this all resolved? And you're going to tie up the loose ends. Remember, try and show rather than telling what's happened. So where you can, try and use show and not tell to show us what's happened to the character now that they've made their decision. And you can look back at my video on showing, not telling, to help you with that. So 5-point plan, we've got your opening, then an introduction of conflict, then we have the actual climactic moment. Now, in the climax, you're going to think about really using a variety of sentence structures so that it stands out as separate to all of your other paragraphs. So once you've done your plan and you start padding this out, when you're thinking about the climax, even if it's an internal conflict and struggle, you can use things like parenthesis. So you can use a pair of dashes, you can use a pair of commas, you can use brackets to add extra information, you can use independent clauses with the semicolon so that you get that sense of pace as your sentences move along, so you can have a mixture of short and longer sentences but that still feel quite pacey. You can use adverbs and verbs, so in your opening you might have used sort of adjectives and described in other ways, but now lots of verbs and adverbs in your sentences, so that the climax really picks up that pace and has that punchy feeling, and leaves the reader quite breathless and wanting to know, okay, what was the outcome of the climax? Then we have the falling action, and so that only needs to really be like a paragraph. We're just seeing what was the outcome for the character of the decision they made, and finally the ending. If you want and you have time, you can go on and do some denouement. You can look at what was the fallout for the character based on their experiences, how has their life changed, and you can create a new normal for them. I think in the time we have, especially in a GCSE exam with limited time, you want to keep it quite simple. You find
Created using Powtoon.